Hi, this is Kylie with Fem and Flow. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today I want to talk about cities, fourth dimensional influences, and the power of the collective consciousness or the collective mind. Cities and city living seem to have a really good PR team. TV and media portray city living as sexy and glamorous. People even seem to tie their ego to the city they live in, and sometimes individuals display a touch of self-righteousness when they mention they live in a city. Have you noticed this? Sometimes it seems merely living in a city gives people a superiority complex. So why is this? To understand why, we need to touch on the fourth dimension, the false matrix, energy portals, and the collective consciousness. Earth has an energetic grid, and this ties to the collective consciousness of a geographic location or a certain group of people. The fourth dimension is the realm of archetypes, myths, and the collective mind. The fourth dimension of Earth was hijacked by dark beings, and a false matrix was put into place that cuts Earth and humanity off from higher dimensional energies. When we align fully with these higher dimensional energies, that is what we archetypally call heaven. The fourth dimension could also be called the matrix or the programming of the physical experience. It essentially sets the vibe of the physical experience. And I've mentioned before, but dimensions 1 through 3 are the physical. They're physical dimensions. And then 4 through 9 are non-physical realms. And these aren't separate layers of a cake. All of this energy is in a spiral. And then it depends on our own energetic frequency that we radiate, that our physical body and energetic system radiates. It depends on that to what energy we are resonating with and anchoring in. Because the Earth's fourth dimension was hijacked and therefore the programming was hacked, much of society is brainwashed and programmed, and they don't even realize it. These people are unknowingly tapped into and being spoon-fed false matrix programming, and they believe this is reality and the truth. I've mentioned it before, but this is like Plato's allegory of the cave. I won't go into it now because I've mentioned it in 2 other episodes. Energetically, these people are in resonance with the false matrix of the fourth dimension and not in resonance with higher dimensional energies. When we are in resonance with higher dimensional energies like 8th dimensional God or source energy, we are in touch with our intuition and we receive truth and divine insight. When we are cut off from this higher dimensional energy and just following the programming of this world, we are just tapped into the false matrix and we are like sheep just following orders and the programming. This group is brainwashed and is what some refer to as NPCs or non-player characters. They don't even realize they are just following fourth dimensional false matrix programming though. But they're not doomed. They can break out of this. Oftentimes, to break out of this, some may need to go through a hard moment that makes them question their life and makes them question reality. This could spur what we call a spiritual awakening. Another related thing is autism. Autism is a hot topic right now. Autism is a spectrum, and it can actually be viewed as a spiritual gift. Many who incarnated here on a specific mission at this time may have decided beforehand to have some level of what we here call autism. And this will actually help them on this journey and mission. People with certain levels of autism are less likely to be tapped into the fourth dimensional false matrix programming. These people often also innately know what is true to our soul, so living in this earth experience with the false matrix can feel very off. And I've talked about telepathy on other episodes, but if you want to listen to a very interesting podcast related to autism and telepathy, I recommend listening to the telepathy tapes. And I actually believe what we're calling autism is actually a few different separate things. I believe the autism people are saying might be tied to certain vaccines is different from the autism that is actually associated with a spiritual gift, but I don't know how to differentiate that right now. I mentioned that the fourth dimension is the realm of the collective mind or collective consciousness. You could also tie this to the concept of hive mindset or herd mentality. The collective mind is essentially an amalgamation of the energy of all the beings or that collective of people. This includes their beliefs. It's essentially the overall vibe of that group of people. The collective mind is neutral. It's not good or bad, but it can be higher vibrational or lower vibrational depending on the collective of people it represents or is created from. But it is considered bad when we don't realize it is influencing us, because this is one way individuals can get programmed and brainwashed. Because of the dense population of people, cities are places with strong collective minds and therefore can have strong influences on people who are unknowingly tapped into the false matrix. In other words, the collective consciousness or the programming is really strong in cities. If people aren't spiritually attuned and just living aligned with this reality, they are just following the fourth dimensional false matrix programming. On an overall level, cities are often places or portals of dark or low vibrational energies. And I'll talk about why. But this means if someone is tapped into the fourth dimensional false matrix programming, cities can be a really dark, energetic place for them, but they probably don't even realize it. In my last episode, I talked about how Satanism is actually taking what is natural and aligned with God's divine order and inverting it. I mentioned examples tied to every dimension of energy, and one thing I mentioned was artificial materials. Cities are full of artificial materials, and it's all stuffed into a really small area, and cities don't have much nature or green space. This in itself cuts off higher dimensional energy from being anchored into Earth's magnetic grid. You could also say the collective mind or collective consciousness of a geographic location is also tied to the culture. When you think of big cities, especially New York City, for example, you may think of the hustle or grind culture. Many people who live here have a huge focus on their career, and they may work a lot and work really long hours. This is actually a huge distraction from what we came here to do, and it's very false matrix vibes. It's very stuck in the matrix vibes. It keeps people busy and distracted and is actually feeding and helping the system that the dark global elite set up to sustain themselves. Cities are a place of unlimited distractions, even aside from the work culture. Cities are a hedonistic playground full of alcohol, drugs, sex on speed dial, or whatever thing temporarily satisfies your appetite for the night. You have everything at your fingertips. Sure, there are also amazing things like museums, restaurants, cool architecture, art in the form of self-expression and great design. I'm just saying the dark can be stronger here if you aren't aware and tapped into higher dimensional energies. Everything really depends on our own personal vibration and frequency. Back to when I said it seems like many people tie ego to living in a big city, and some seem to have a superiority complex about it. This is very tied into the concept of indoctrination. If simply living in a city feeds the ego and makes someone feel superior to others, this is actually very dangerous. It is making someone feel big, important, and superior without doing any actual work on themselves. It is just ignorance. This is what the dark global elite wants, and these are the type of people who are feeding the dark global elite system. This is all part of the indoctrination and programming. This also ties back to the episode I did on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a true idea of self-actualization that is more spiritual and actually true to the big picture, but then there's a self-actualization that is tied to this false matrix and idea of worldly success. Another thing that does the same thing when it comes to indoctrination and pumping up the ego is some forms of higher education. The dark global elite have set it up that certain universities are more prestigious, and aligning your ego and your self-identity with being quote unquote educated is pushed and celebrated in the culture. These people who tie ego to being educated or tout they follow the science are actually the most indoctrinated, brainwashed, and controlled ones. Then they tie so much ego to these ideas that they feel personally attacked when someone questions the idea. This is all emotional manipulation. Tying ego to education, career, universities, etc. is just aligned with the false matrix and indoctrination. The dark global elite want people to do this, though, because it helps indoctrinate people and brainwash them to align with their agenda. Then they have it set up to give high pay to careers that promote their agenda or help them in some way. And tying ego to these things is extremely void and spiritually meaningless. It's keeping people distracted within this false matrix and keeping them super plugged into the false matrix, so they're too distracted and too busy chasing worldly success, chasing money, chasing the false idea of the false matrix self-actualization. It keeps them too busy with that stuff to actually spend time in solitude, spend time in nature, and focus on your spirituality and your true connection to God. That true connection is what will give you divine insights and help you see the truth. I've talked about it in other episodes how the dark global elite are parasitic beings that get their energy from siphoning from humanity. Everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. These parasitic beings can only harvest or siphon the energy that resonates with them or that vibrates within a certain frequency band. Therefore, they thrive in lower vibrational locations like big cities. These big cities are the perfect energy harvesting setup for them. Understand how this works because I want to make it extremely crystal clear that these parasitic beings don't have true power. Humans do. These parasitic beings, who I call the dark global elite, don't create cities as dark energy portals. They don't have the power to do this. Humanity actually does this via the collective consciousness or collective mind. Remember, the collective consciousness is basically an amalgamation of all of the energy, beliefs, etc. of the collective of people that make up that specific group, including locations. The frequency of the collective consciousness or collective mind is what creates what I am calling a dark energy portal. So we all need to wake up to this truth and understand the energetics behind our reality and how it works. This is our divine power. I always mention that once we wake up and step into our power as humans and creator beings, it is absolutely over for the dark global elite parasitic beings. The only way these parasitic beings are controlling humanity is by lying, brainwashing, indoctrinating, and manipulating. We need to see the truth of this because we can use our power to shift these dark portals into light portals. And by portal, I just mean location of very potent energy, and that can be high vibrational energy or low vibrational energy. And the dark brainwash, manipulates, and indoctrinates us in so many ways. They do this with the different pillars of our current society, and this includes the education system, Western medicine, pharmaceuticals, the food industry, Hollywood and entertainment, politics, the list goes on and on. Also, can't forget organized religion. Basically, we should question literally every organization, system, or institution that has been able to grow, survive, and thrive under this dark regime of control. Question everything, think critically. We were brainwashed from birth. We were born in a prison that has the doors open. We escape this prison by understanding our true divinity and understanding our true power and seeing the truth to what's going on here. Earth has ley lines, and these ley lines form an invisible energy grid across the Earth. This is essentially where Earth's energy is the strongest. I've mentioned before how when we ground and put our bare feet on the Earth absorbs any low vibrational energy and neutralizes it. This energy comes back to us via Earth, and it is most potent on these ley lines. And notice I said this energy is neutral. The dark global elite know this truth about ley lines, and they know how to utilize it for their dark agenda. The Vatican is the darkest place on this earth, and it was purposely built on a ley line. They use this neutral energy of the ley line and essentially transmute it into dark energy via changing the frequency by doing dark satanic rituals. The Vatican is the synagogue of Satan. The Roman Catholic Church is the synagogue of Satan. And it's not just the Roman Catholic Church, it's also tied to early Judaism and the Jesuits. It's all of the same darkness packaged under different names to continue to confuse, manipulate, and control. It's also Hollywood, and it's the current culture. Culture. Cult. See? It's all indoctrination. So you may have heard about the ritual the Vatican is doing on Christmas Eve. And actually, I'm releasing this on Christmas Eve. I should have probably put this out beforehand, but hey, now is good of time as ever. The mainstream media is so ridiculous, and they're doing all of these fact checks about this event as if we believe the mainstream media at all. So whatever, I'm not even going to talk about what mainstream media is saying. I'll say allegedly, but here is what is allegedly happening. So the light is absolutely winning. If you follow me on TikTok, you may have seen my video where I said we will have a huge shift on December 21st on the winter solstice. That was a few days ago. And I talked about how this will be the biggest shift of this year. So that was a few days ago that happened. The dark is doing many, many last-ditch attempts to gain some sort of control. Remember, they're parasitic and they rely on the energy of humanity to keep going. They don't connect to source energy like we do. They have to harvest it from us, from humanity. So they're doing last-ditch efforts to get energy, essentially. And this will keep them sustained for just a little longer. They no longer have the control like they once did, though. The light is in control. This has been going back and forth for a little while now. We can look back to the outrageous Olympic ceremony, or should I say dark ritual, to see another example of one of their last-ditch attempts. This Vatican Christmas Eve event is another last-ditch attempt in the form of a dark ritual, and this is to harvest energy, essentially. And they will be doing things that transmute this potent neutral ley line energy into low-frequency energy. They are thirsty little parasitic monsters. But they're not powerful, they're just manipulative. I've mentioned it before, but I'm sure you can think of rituals and things that would create a lot of low vibrational energy. Why is there a stereotype about Catholic priests and altar boys? There is story after story about Catholic priest sexual abuse. And recently it came out that the Los Angeles Catholic Church covered up molesting priests for decades. And there was recently a record $880 million settlement with the victims. This horrendous pattern with Catholic sexual abuse has nothing to do with sexual urges related to abstinence. It is much darker than that. So, like I mentioned, this energetic ley line is just an area of very potent neutral energy. So the Vatican being located on the ley line and then them doing these dark rituals on that ley line essentially amplifies this dark energy, because they're taking that neutral energy and transmuting it into low vibrational energy by doing these dark ritualistic things. But remember, this energy from the ley line is neutral, and the light hugely, hugely, hugely outpowers the dark. Even one person vibrating at the enlightenment level of frequency totally counterbalances the dark low frequencies of all of humanity. So anyone who feels called to do so, please meditate, pray, and visualize light spreading across humanity. Do this on Christmas Eve, and this is to counterbalance the Vatican's dark ritual. Also, don't watch or tune in to the Vatican ritual. So to do this, meditate and feel your heart anchoring in God's pure light, and breathe in this light and then visualize it washing over humanity as you breathe out. You can imagine yourself as a light breathing golden dragon. I like to do that sometimes. You can do this however you prefer. And you can also visualize light pouring over the Vatican. Whatever comes to mind. Be guided by God and your intuition. Before I meditate or visualize, I like to say, God, please shine your bright light of protection down around me. Also, make sure you take time to anchor in God, anchor in source energy, and truly feel it radiating in your heart space. This is the high vibrational energy you want to be using and you want to work with when you do the meditation and you visualize this. Okay, now I'm switching gears back to the topic of cities. You may have heard conspiracy theories about the Denver airport, Chicago underground, or the tunnels under Los Angeles. All of these theories tie to the concept I'm talking about when I say cities are dark energy portals. I won't get into the specific theories, but remember, light way, way outpowers the dark. So don't be afraid to visit these cities. When you are in a city, always protect your energy and imagine yourself spreading light and high vibrations everywhere you go. Every single interaction sends out energy vibrating at certain frequencies, so make sure you are sending out high vibrations. And when it comes to protecting your energy, you can listen to my episode on how to protect your energy if you want more info. I even talk about the quantum physics behind the concept. But for now, we'll shorten this. So to protect your energy, you can simply just visualize golden armor or a golden shield around you. Our minds are so much more powerful than we even realize. And we live in a quantum universe, and reality is observer dependent. So if you think visualizing golden armor around yourself sounds crazy, just go back to the basic fact that we live in a quantum universe. And reality is observer dependent. Regarding this, I would say we live in a simulation, but I don't agree with that exactly because to me, a simulation means it's practice or our actions or what we do here doesn't matter. Our actions and what we do here really, really matters. Because, especially at this time, a lot of us incarnated in on a specific mission to counterbalance this darkness that has taken over. We are here to spread light and switch Earth from a universe created from a black hole to a universe created from a white hole. We are here to shift the polarity. And if you want more info on this, go listen to some of my recent previous episodes. So yeah, in a way, we are living in a simulation, but it's not just a game. Our actions here really do matter. Just simply understanding how some of these base energetics work and seeing some of this truth takes so much of the dark's power away. It puts the power back in our hands. I've mentioned before how, on an overall level, with politics, Republican versus Democrat are two wings of the same bird. This dark global elite has largely controlled any politician who rose to power. You can gauge how the dark global elite feels about someone based on the media's reaction to them. The mainstream media is just a dark global elite propaganda machine. I won't get into that here, but I do want to point out something that's interesting. That is how large cities always seem to vote aligned with Democrats. So why is this? You may say a handful of different logical things, but on the big picture, it's definitely tied to this concept I'm talking about. How the collective consciousness is essentially stronger in these densely populated cities, and it is lower vibrational due to the lack of natural places, the huge density of artificial materials, the culture, etc. The dark and the light are constantly strategizing. This is a spiritual war. In recent times, due to the beliefs and values of people aligned with the Democratic Party has been easier to infiltrate and manipulate. This is because guilt and fear are the basis of manipulation, and it's easier to manipulate someone who relies purely on emotions to guide them, or at least that leans more emotionally driven. We need to be balanced in emotions and logic. When we run purely on emotions, we are easy prey for manipulation and control. When we think about Democrats or liberals, we may think of the term bleeding heart liberal. It's so wonderful to care and want to help others, but we must be balanced in emotions and logic. Also, something else is coming to mind. Have you seen recently how much money California is pumping into homes, apartments, and the living spaces for their homeless population? All allegedly, but when you start looking at those numbers and how many units they will provide with that huge number, it does not make logical sense. And I've seen some people do deep dives on this issue and this topic, and it allegedly all points to money laundering. So this is one of the ways they emotionally manipulate people. They put out a emotionally charged topic and say, hey, you should vote for this. It's going to take taxpayer money, but let's yank at the heartstrings a little. Isn't it worth it? And then people feel guilty, people feel sad, they get emotionally triggered, and they want to help. In reality, allegedly, these politicians aren't doing a thing to actually help that issue. It's just funneling into their little money laundering scheme that funds the pyramid of the dark global elite. Like I said, we really must be balanced in emotions and logic. This is the way the dark has very much exploited the Democratic Party in recent years. But I'm not just saying it is the Democratic Party that's tied to the dark global elite. I'm 31 years old, and in my lifetime, there has also been Republican presidents aligned with the dark global elite. I'm not going to say more about that, though. I'm going to leave it at that. But people may look at the current Democratic Party and think, that is not the Democratic Party I used to support. And we've heard RFK Jr. say he didn't leave the Democratic Party left him. It seems many share the same sentiment. And now the Democratic Party is aligned with the huge corporations and the military-industrial complex. The dark has infiltrated the Democratic Party by exploiting and manipulating emotions. Like I said, you exploit and trigger someone emotionally. You say, let's use taxpayer dollars to do this. And then it becomes a perfect setup for their little money laundering scheme. Then we need to use our logic and think, okay, what is actually being done? Then we see nothing. I saw a quote that rings true. Here it is. If you push for equality before freedom, you get none. If you push for freedom before equality, you get both. The dark is literally trying to emotionally manipulate people on the basis of equality with the goal to slyly and subtly take away freedom. People really need to wake up to this. So I talked about cities and why they are essentially portals of dark energy. I mentioned how the culture there sets it up this way. Now let's talk about what we can do about this and what we can do to connect to higher dimensional energies. First thing I want to mention is the huge importance of nature. Being in nature is extremely important. There are so many benefits tied to nature. Hearing birds chirp calms your nervous system. Grounding or putting your bare feet on the earth basically replenishes your energy system. This is also the case with swimming in salt water. Looking at beautiful scenes of nature helps calm the nervous system. Exercising or moving your body in nature is also so wonderful and so beneficial. It ties in multiple benefits I've mentioned. And being in nature helps get your body back in that natural resonance that it should be in. And you know more about this if you listen to my other episode about the different dimensions and the specific frequency that they correlate to. And another important thing is spending time in solitude. And for maximum benefit, you can spend solitude in nature. When you spend time in solitude and get into a meditative state, your brain waves go into theta waves. When your brain is in theta waves, you can connect to God or source energy, connect to your intuition, and receive higher guidance or divine insight. This is so important. Spending time in nature and in solitude is hugely impactful because, like I mentioned, nature is great for your energy system and it's super healing for your nervous system. And then the solitude puts your brain in theta waves, which connects you to intuition and divine insight. Cities don't align with this because there's not much nature there, and it's mostly artificial materials. You're often so distracted with 1,000 different stimuli, and you're most likely more tapped into the fourth dimension rather than the higher dimensional energies. And remember, the fourth dimensional false matrix is just programming. You're just following matrix programming instead of following God and source energy and divine higher insight. If you're someone who feels they can't meditate or aren't good at it because you can't turn your brain off, this is a sign your nervous system is dysregulated. Work on regulating your nervous system and keep trying to meditate because it will be extremely beneficial for you. And remember, meditation is a practice. You need to practice it. You won't just do it once or twice and understand it fully. A dysregulated nervous system equates to stuck in the matrix vibes. Also, please never listen to organized religion if they say meditation is bad. This is absolutely baffling to me. That teaching feels extremely dark and evil to me. It's an immediate red flag. How is breathing, spending time in solitude with yourself bad? No. Absolutely red flag. No way. Not a chance. I bring this up because I once was in a church and the pastor said this. Maybe that pastor is just brainwashed and indoctrinated but has good intentions, but it's wild that he is leading others and pushing this. I believe the teaching that meditation is evil is to manipulate people into feeling guilt or fear so they don't realize they actually connect to God from within. And so they never actually connect to true divine guidance. Without connecting to true divine guidance within yourself, we are absolutely blind. If we are blind and don't know the truth within, we can easily be misguided, manipulated, and controlled. And that keeps you stuck in this false matrix where the parasitic beings are using you as an energy source. And like I said, I don't believe the pastor is evil. He is likely just very ignorant, brainwashed, and indoctrinated. Everyone needs to watch out who they are listening to. I really don't like it that many well-meaning, great people with big hearts are being misguided by people like him. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Do not take my word for it. I'm not merely telling people this stuff. I'm telling everyone that they all have the power to connect to God internally within their heart and receive divine guidance and to see and know the truth. I'm just sharing what I have learned and received along the way. I'm sharing this knowledge, this truth, and also showing the traps and the pitfalls. And it all is with a goal to empower everyone. We all have the power to be our own gurus. Humanity is absolutely divine. Everyone has just been lied to. We need to wake up to our true power and our true divinity. And we are moving back to this. We will step back into our power. And there's a quote that ties into what I'm talking about. This is the quote. One of the main functions of organized religion is to protect people against a direct experience of God. And that was a quote by Carl Jung. Quote I saw and I liked. Religion is belief in someone else's experience. Spirituality is having your own experience. Never ever just blindly believe someone else. We have to balance emotions and logic, always question everything, hone our critical thinking skills, and learn how to connect to higher guidance. And by higher guidance, I mean God and our guides who are fully in resonance with the higher dimensional energies, including pure God, pure source energy, pure light. That is the highest vibrational energy that there is. And like I mentioned, meditation is a great place to begin. Spending time in solitude and in nature is also wonderful. Also, be careful about leaning on your own opinion or your own ego. This false matrix is so backwards and society is so brainwashed that it can feel very disillusioning at times. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. I want to remind once again that it's Christmas Eve and the Vatican is doing that dark ritual. So if you feel called to, please take some time to meditate today, to pray, and to visualize all of humanity being washed with light, and picture the Vatican being washed with light. And picture that darkness just ceasing to exist. Like nothing happens of their dark ritual. Just imagine whatever light, wonderful thing comes to mind. I hope you liked this. I hope it was insightful and helpful. If you liked it, please subscribe and send to a friend. And any friends that meditate and are interested in this stuff, tell them about the meditation to counterbalance this dark Vatican ritual. I love you all. Have a great day.